Thanks. So let's get right into the agenda and business. So today we have 627 folks registered for cohort. That's awesome. We expect that number to increase as more and more people learn about cohort at DevLearn. People get engaged, they learn about xAPI, and they just want to jump right in. So be prepared for some new interest in your teams, people joining your Slack channels and lurking on the work that you've been doing, people paying attention to your GitHub. That's all great. It's all a learning experience, and we want to include as many folks as possible. Today we're going to have a panel from the Expo and cohort alumni panel, and we'll have folks actually at DevLearn facilitating that conversation. So Megan will be behind the screens doing that for us today. Again, hi, I'm Jess. I'm Jess Jackson. I'm an instructional designer. We have Leanne behind the scenes with us here at Torrance Learning in Michigan with Jamie. And then we have Aaron and Megan at DevLearn in Vegas operating behind the scenes there. Today is week 8 of our 12-week cohort. So we're moving into the a conversation on the state of the industry, getting a broad perspective of what's going on, what they're learning at DevLearn, what they're learning from key folks there. We've been walking through kind of what is xAPI, how to send data from both e-learning and non-e-learning. We talked about receiving data. We talked about sending better data using profiles. Last week we took a look at how to take a deep dive into learners' usability and effectiveness with xAPI. And for the next couple weeks we'll be talking about the state of the industry, an update from the ADL, and the state of the specification before we move into project demos. So as you're going through this cohort, at week 8, your team should be digging into the details. So as I'm looking at team updates, paying attention to what's happening in the Slack channels, I see folks doing lots of iterations. I see it's interesting to see the broad spectrum of folks involved in cohort. So some of our beginners taking more and more courses on LinkedIn Learning and learning more about xAPI. Some of our pros doing coding, using wrappers. It's really interesting to see the breadth of learning that's happening with our teams. So you shouldn't use what another team is doing to benchmark where you should be, but your team should be thinking about their project and what you're going to be accomplishing. Scoping out, assigning tasks, and iterating. Trying again, trying again, trying again. And ask for help. Use the Slack channel, specifically the main channel, to ask questions. There are lots of experts in there that could help you on anything that might be giving you a hiccup. So we are switching the agenda up a little bit today. We're going to start with team updates and then go into the state of the industry at DevLearn. So while I'm switching my screen and sharing the screen for our GitHub, I do want to remind you that team updates should be submitted via GitHub, and if you need support on how to do that, always ask in Slack. I can help you, Matt Cleaver can help you, Alex can help you, pretty much anyone can help you with that. So I'm going to start us off with Team Agent. If anyone is on the call to represent Team Agent and give your updates, go ahead and do that. Tracy, or if there's anyone on the call to give that update. I know that a lot of teams don't have updates this week because they've been prepping and are at DevLearn. So it's okay if there's no update. Alrighty. Team Alexa, Brian, are you on the call? Brian, I see you're on the call. Did you want to share your update for the week? Alrighty, so Team Alexa. Okay, Brian, I'll just read the update for you. They built out the majority of their interaction script and started to build their interaction within voice flow. No needs for support, and they're working on finishing their interactions in the upcoming week and starting to test their xAPI statements within the Alexa skill. Awesome, awesome. I know that Team Atlassian is at DevLearn and might not have an update, but is there anyone that from Team Alexa that can give an update? Team Atlassian that can give an update? Maria, are you on the line? Alrighty. Team Beginners. Trisha, are you on the line? Or anyone that can represent Team Beginners? Holly? Alrighty, I know that this week Team Beginners got their GitHub up and going, awesome, and submitted their first update. They've outlined a potential way to develop a project, so they're all learning. I know that in the Slack channel I see that this team is taking advantage of the resource and learning and additional learning. They might benefit from a technical coach, so when you're asking for technical coaches, a suggestion that I have is to just ask your questions in the main Slack channel. There are lots of folks that can support in that space. And they're going to, was someone unmuting their mic? And they're going to look to set up their LRS to capture the statements in the next coming week. I know that Team Captivate, Brian told me that he won't be able to be on the call, so I'm just going to give his update. They started the desktop installation of the app to customize their parameters, including login and what the wrapper will track, what verbs and verb IDs to use. And they're continuing to tweak and get updates with their wrapper. Is anyone from Team Checky McChecklist, Chris, or anyone on the call? Team Dragon Stats. Is anyone on the call from Team Dragon Stats? Well, I know that they're from their Slack channel. They're continuing to meet, have conversations, and work on some of the statements that their game is sending. I know early childhood does.
Can you guys hear me?
I can hear you. Who's this?
Oh, okay, thank goodness. This is Sir John of Roxley. No, this is John Rock from Team Dragon Stats. Just with a quick update, we were able to meet yesterday, and we're kind of going in 3 different directions with it. Anthony Altieri wasn't there because he's at DevLearn, I understand. So I wish him the best. Hope he's doing great. Choking down the FOMO on that one because a little bit jealous. But other than that, David and Irina were able to meet with me, and we're going in we're attacking the problem from 3 different directions. First, we need a practice dungeon, a little short level that people can play the game in and have the full experience in one session. So I'm actually creating that right now. We had done a lot of research in the previous week, seeing as how we're all instructional designers, we're all e-learning developers, but not necessarily all of us were Dungeons & Dragons players. When I threw the group out there, I thought I'd get a lot more of those guys jumping and giving us some of their expertise, but we've been having to kind of catch up and learn how this stuff goes. So we have run across some gems of how to play the game well. If in doubt, dodge it out. Never split the party, that kind of thing. So what we're kind of doing is pooling our research, putting it together. I'm creating the level. Irina has been doing a mind map, kind of doing the instructional design piece of saying what are the key pieces of information that we are discovering that a brand new player would want to know. We're kind of picturing like someone that got invited to play for the first time. maybe a group of people that have already been together, playing frequently, and they're like, hey, would you like to jump in on a session, and what questions they'd have about being a good player. So Irina's been doing some of the mind mapping and figuring that, and she's already got something out. I haven't had a chance to look at it in depth yet. And then for David's part, he's our xAPI code guy. He's going to be going out and looking at profiles and looking at the correct verbs to use for the kind of things we want to keep track of. The end goal, and I don't know if we're going to get there by December, but we're trying, is to have a playable module that we can keep track of and maybe even generate statements on the actual play, to have an intervention, which might be like a storyline e-learning that we could put part of the set through and have them take it and train them up in the things that are, well, good. And then we can compare how did the people that went through the intervention perform in the actual module versus how did the people that didn't have any training do, something like that. Any questions from the group? I don't see anything in the chat.
I don't see anything in the chat. That's awesome, J-Rock. I love how y'all are dividing and conquering, and everyone has a role. I'm excited to see what you accomplish.
It's just like a Dungeons and Dragons party. Everyone's got to know their role.
Yep. I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, unfortunately, so I might be your target learner. We talked about Team Early Childhood Education. They don't have any updates this week. They've been too busy to work on their files. Team HTML5 Tracking. Is anyone available on the call to give their update? Julie or anyone? Team Interactive Video, is anyone on the call to give their update? Adrian or anyone? Team LlamaSoft, I know that they're in full DevLearn prep mode, so they probably won't have an update until after DevLearn. Team Microsoft Teams, is anyone on the call to give an update there? Leah or anyone? Oh. All right, Team Online Labs. Luis, are you on the line? I think I saw you. Alrighty, Team Pebble. Kristen or anyone on the line to give an update from Team Pebble? All right. Team Query LRS, is there anyone on the line to give an update from Team Query LRS? Austin or anyone?
I'm here. This is Wes.
Awesome. Yes,
Can you
we
hear me?
can hear you.
Okay, so from what I can tell, the team has gone inactive besides for myself, so I'm just taking over unless someone else can step in and join, which would be great. My project is I'm trying to send a variable from a storyline course into an LRS and then retrieve it in a follow-up module. My current testing is I've gotten an xAPI to send over saying I've answered the question. I'm currently working for the right verbiage and code so I can actually send the actual answer as a variable. And then my next step will be to pull it back from the LRS into a following module. The questions I currently have is nowhere in at least my current setup of the LRS can I tell what lesson plan I'm in. So I don't know how to designate which lesson or which answer to pull from. So I'll be needing to look into that. And then just also new coding as to how to pull it. Once I find the lesson, how to find the variable.
I think your mic went out.
Can you hear me?
Now I can. I can hear you.
Okay. Did you hear anything of what I said?
The last point that I heard was you're figuring out the lesson, what lesson you're in. And once you figure that out, that's when your mic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, once I'm able to figure out what lesson I'm trying to pull from, because in theory I'll have multiple lessons and I need to know which one to pull from, pull the variable and then assign it to a new variable in the second storyline lesson. And so that's my next step right now, is to first send the answer itself, not just that they answered the question, and then how to assign that as a variable.
Awesome. You might want to check if there's anyone on the line that can help figure out where the lessons are or can offer feedback. Go ahead and put that in the chat, and then if not, you can use the main channel to ask for support, since it seems like there's not a lot of folks in your team channel right now. Thanks for that update. Team Scavenger Hunt, is there anyone on the line to represent Team Scavenger Hunt and give that update? Tracy or anyone? All right, Team Storyline has closed. Team Unity 3D Sandbox, is anyone on the line to give an update there?
Yeah, hi.
Go ahead,
Hi,
Eric.
it's Eric. Let's see. So my newest update, which if you refresh the page you might see it, but I'll just read it out. It's we worked on a navigation component so that we're able to move around in a 3D scene, which is kind of the idea of having levels, kind of like lesson plans. We're calling ours levels that you have to do in the scene. So our waypoints or navigation points bring you to little interactive objects. So as we work through that, we're also using this built-in tool in Unity called ProBuilder, and ProBuilder is free, it's included in Unity, and it lets you do 3D modeling. So now we're going to keep within that framework so that anybody who jumps into Unity for the first time kind of has a quick way to jump in and start building interactive objects that ultimately will report back through xAPI. So for next week, for this coming week, we want to finish the navigation component so that it's easy to get around in 3D, and take one of these waypoints and start working on some kind of a task or objective, some kind of step-by-step activity that will lead to a completion. And if we can do that, then we've kind of built the framework for what we hope to be able to demo and build from there. So that's it for today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. And Team Vimeo and xAPI, is there anyone on the call that can give that update? Carolyn or anyone? And then Team WordPress and Learn in Dash. James or anyone can give an update from Team WordPress and Learn in Dash? All right. Well, I'm going to transition back to the presentation. We're right on time with the agenda. So let me go back into our PowerPoint. And we're going to pass it over shortly to our team at DevLearn, where we'll have an expo panel and cohort and alumni panel. So I'm going to pass it over to Megan, who's going to give us our update on the state of the industry.
Hello from DevLearn. Can you hear us? And do we need to shout? That's probably the other question. No? No, we do not need to shout. Okay, that's good. So this is Megan, and we are on the floor at DevLearn with a whole bunch of people who are in the xAPI community as well as in the cohort. Oh, we got these guys over here. I'm not good at doing this backwards. This year, if you watched last year, when we did this, I ran around the expo booth, and this year we asked everybody to come here so I didn't trip and make a big scene. So what we're going to do is, in a second, turn it over to some of the vendors in the space who are making xAPI happen and who are talking to customers and clients and people who are curious and people who are learning about what they're hearing with xAPI. I will say, from my perspective, it has been absolutely crazy to see this many sessions on the program about xAPI, and it's not just what is it or what's possible, it's what I'm doing with it. It's how to sell it, it's how to manage the projects, it's how to build the ecosystem and scale it. So that's been super, super cool to see that much traction. And yet still at the intro to xAPI session that I did yesterday morning, we had standing room only, we had 215 people in the room, and a lot of people who are just hearing about xAPI for the very first time. So there's lots and lots going on. We also had a great turnout for the Guild's research report on xAPI adoption, where we had lots of really good conversations about what's happening and how, well, basically, if you are listening to this right now, you're still on the leading edge of the industry and where things are going. So we're going to turn this in just a second over because I've got a whole bunch of notable faces and people who've been doing xAPI for a long time in this space. I'm just going to slowly, my goal is not to make everybody feel nauseous as I spin around. We're all laughing. For those of you who came to join us though, xAPI cohort this session, we have over 600 people enrolled just this session. We don't enroll anybody automatically forward. So it's 600 people. We've had probably about 30 people sign up just here at DevLearn this week. We have over 2,000 people in the Slack channel, kind of all time for xAPI cohort. And we've been doing this since 2015 when ADL decided that they could no longer support the community aspect of this. So the cohort has been this gigantic community of people who've been coming together to learn about xAPI, and they have all appreciated the free trial extended options that vendors have offered and support to make some of their experiments and projects happen. So I'm going to actually, so there's a couple of you, James, I'm going to call you out simply because you've been so active in prior cohorts, so you get to start. Perfect, so we're going to try this.
Hi. Oh, where am I? Hi, James with Learning Pool. We make Learning Locker, was at HT2, but we got acquired in June. As far as conversations that we're having that we're really enjoying, a lot of stuff around automation, what you can do beyond just analysis with xAPI, how you can actually adapt the learner experience using data, make it a personalized, adaptive, branching test. So we're really excited about that.
Very cool. You know, I'm going to have you guys come because we're probably going to run right in. Let's do this. So we also have the cohort logo in the back. John, come here. All right, so let's see.
Hello, hello.
Try to get, there we go.
Yeah, hello. So we're actually getting a lot of questions about CMI5 for the first time, which really is interesting, right? All based on xAPI. I've seen some statistics from the Rustisi guys about the usage of xAPI spiking now for the first time. So we're actually seeing the promise of it come to view. So it's really nice.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Jessa.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, so in our booth, we're getting lots of people coming along really pumped for xAPI and asking how they can sell it as a business case to all of the people back home when they return from DevLearn. So we've been talking lots about how xAPI can add value to existing systems and kind of bolster data collection processes so that it becomes really meaningful and useful. The other thing that we're doing is we're looking at how to use xAPI to gather data for face-to-face learning so that we're not polluting beautiful face-to-face learning opportunities with any sort of clunky online systems. So we're merging online and offline learning spaces as well as we can with xAPI.
Cool, thanks. All right, we're going to continue the awesome accents version of this.
Hey, I'm Peter from Watershed. We've been hearing a lot recently around, especially this week, around what are people going to do with this data now they've got it. We're finding a lot of our clients have a lot of this learning data that they've now got stored in their LOS, but actually now they want to find out what is the value of that data. What does it actually mean? What is the comparative that they can pull around that? When they're looking at sales training, how do we actually compare sales training? So if we're doing sales training, well, Is it improving our sales? If we're doing customer service training, is it improving our customer service kind of skills of our organization? The other thing we're hearing a lot about is profiles, and our profiles, what are they, what's going on with it, are they confusing, are they going to cause problems? And there's still a lot of confusion around that, which, yeah, is quite evident in the industry.
There's lots going on. Thank you. Alan Partridge from Adobe.
Yeah, so for us, we've been focused pretty heavily on LMS integration with xAPI, and our focus is really kind of on the Internet of Things, and how we're starting to have customers actually utilize point-of-sale devices and other kinds of devices to do a kind of a Kirkpatrick 3.5, to give feedback at the moment that someone is actually performing a task. So think of it as a kind of a level up on demonstrating a skill. We've trained it, you bring it forward, and then you're able to leverage the xAPI, not necessarily from a specific software app, but from machines, devices, all kinds of things. Everything from assembly lines to ovens to some software things too, like Salesforce.com, that kind of thing.
Very cool.
Cool.
That's crazy. Thank you. All right, Mike Prescott, one of the crazy fathers of xAPI.
Thank you. I love what you're doing. I love that you're such a community builder, and everyone should applaud right now for that. I think it's great. This was just a dream 10 plus years ago, and now I'm seeing such amazing stuff. I was at a table at lunch yesterday, and someone said, I just learned about something really cool. It's called xAPI. I said, tell me about it. And they told me about it, and they did a really good job in a non-technical way of explaining. I said, how did you learn about this? And they said, Megan Torrance. So it was really cool.
We talk about xAPI.
Well, look, there's some really cool stuff happening. I see a lot of people, a lot of tool makers doing things. A lot of my work is working with organizations thinking about learning ecosystems and how they can power them with xAPI. And now the amount of tools and tech that's available is game-changing.
Cool.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Hey.
All right, let's see. There we go.
Hi. We got a whole group there?
We have a whole group
Awesome.
there, as well as all sorts of people who are listening on YouTube later.
Worldwide? Yeah.
Worldwide.
Cool.
Yes.
Right on.
Yeah, so what's going on with xAPI, and what are people talking to you about it?
Well, the focus, I'm Chad Udell, and my, no, that's cool. And my company is Float. Right over here. Yeah. And so we build mobile applications, and we've been in the xAPI game basically since the inception. We were building even before it was a 1.0. And so people are really interested in ways to get their content to the learners really quickly, and that's what we're primarily focused on. So we've been talking about how do you get people into your system, maybe to provide a mobile-focused user experience that's a little bit more friendly than the traditional LMS application, and then how do you actually do something that's customized and white labeled so it looks and feels like the rest of the company's branded applications and so on and so forth. Yeah, so it's been fun.
Very cool. All right, tell us about your book, Tim.
Oh yeah, sure. So the session that I had yesterday was on how to overcome the shock of the new and embrace and create your own emergent technology strategy. The name of the book that I just released in April, co-authored with the late Gary Woodall, was called The Shock of the New. And it's about a framework that you can use to evaluate emerging technologies. There's a lot of really cool stuff, even on the show floor here, augmented reality, virtual reality. People are talking about, even down the pipeline, maybe blockchain and a variety of other types of things. How do you create a reusable framework complete with a rubric to measure the overall business impact, user experience, learning models, dependencies, and signals of these new technologies to aid in your technology evaluation?
Very cool. And
Yep.
sorry, I keep struggling with turning this and
that's all
falling
right.
off your face and stuff
Yep.
like this. Richard Bass, you are up next, sir.
All right.
Come
Bye.
here. Hey, thanks.
Bye.
All right.
Hello, Megan and everybody. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I'm Richard Bass with eLearning Brothers, and I guess I'm here to say, here, we lost the picture for just a minute. eLearning Brothers, our library is featuring xAPI integrated in our downloadable templates. Many of you may be part of our family already. So we've done we've learned a lot about how to make those templates work in such a way that when you download them, those xAPI hooks are already included in there. We do a lot of custom work as well on our end with in many ways with Megan's guidance to help us understand where we need to be going with xAPI. I'll never forget the conference where you showed me using, I drew a picture is what it was, and you put that on my learning record, sort of, simulated that.
with an xAPI hook in your early days, many years ago. So that's where I first started to learn about what does it really mean. We're trying to do a better job of integrating xAPI into all of our custom projects now. So we're getting a lot of requests along those lines.
Very cool.
How'd I do?
You did awesome.
Okay,
you did
thank you.
awesome. Did I expect anything less?
Well,
no.
I was just hoping I wouldn't let you down. So thanks,
No.
everybody.
Okay. All right. We also haven't heard from. Hold on, just a second. Come here. You're on the cohort. What's going on with xAPI? This is Duncan Welder from Risk, and he also spoke to the cohort a few weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah, so what's going on with xAPI? We're doing, from a show standpoint, there's a lot of additional integration and authoring tools. As a matter of fact, I just had the Lectora folks pass over a scenario VR course. It's published to CMI5 to test out in the LMS, and doing a lot of space learning stuff here to bypass the LMS using xAPI.
Very cool. Very cool. So way past just getting statements in the LRS.
That's right, yeah. So in this case, people don't want to get into the LMS, don't want to to deal with that. They want to get quick information out, and we can do all that credentialing through xAPI and just pass off the completion information.
Very cool. Hey, would you do me a favor? Would you go snag Paul Schneider and somebody from Rustasy so we can get everybody in? All right, you ready?
Okay.
All right.
Hi.
This is Bill West from Regatta.
Hey. Hello. How are you?
Yes, you're good. You're talking to Cohort Live.
Oh, excellent. Outstanding. What do they like to know? Should I just tell them stuff?
I would like to have you explain what you guys are doing with xAPI and what people are asking you about xAPI.
I think virtual reality may be one of the things that makes xAPI extremely popular. Because inside the VR headset, I can track everything they do. I can track where they look, the decisions they make, the stress points, all these crazy things. A lot more than what you can do in a typical e-learning course, and it's all in xAPI. And so we can port it over to an LRS and do analytics and really get measurement on behavior as opposed to just performance. That's pretty exciting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So are people asking you if this is xAPI enabled?
Yes, everybody is. They're asking me if it works on an LMS, and they're asking me if it's xAPI enabled. I get to say yes.
Cool.
That's right.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Take care.
All right. So hey, everybody, this is Paul Schneider, who has participated in Cohort for years.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Go for
Hello.
it. Say hi to Cohort.
Hello, Cohort. How are you doing? It's great here to be at DevLearn. Wish you were here.
So what's going on? What are people asking you? How is xAPI being received at DevLearn this year?
Great. I mean, we're still seeing a lot of folks that are brand new to it, wanting to know I was at the xAPI camp, and then folks that are actually, like yourselves, actually out there doing it. And it's nice to see people that are going, hey, I don't have to go ahead and work so hard to actually get it done. And we're seeing more and more tools do that, so it's exciting.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. And thanks for being part of Cohort.
Oh, of course. Thank you for having it.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun. All right, I think that's the vendor crew I was looking for. So Tracy, so you guys get to see Tracy in Slack, and here's Tracy in real life. I get to meet her. Hello. For the second time. All right, what are you hearing about xAPI?
Here at the conference, I actually got a whole bunch from ATD ICE and have taken off running from it. So I have a different focus for the conference, but I have a lot of things outside of the conference I'm working on related to xAPI.
Like what? Can you share?
Secret meeting with Brady coming up in the next week to figure out what he did in the spring to help me catapult my project for this cohort.
Cool. Cool.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Awesome. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for getting the word out. Hi, you want to give a shout out from DevLearn to the cohort?
Sure, why not?
All right. Introduce yourself. Say hi to everybody.
Hi, I'm Andrew Feldstein. I am Assistant Provost for Teaching Innovation and Learning Technologies at Fort Hays State University. And DevLearn's a great place to learn about what's going on in development and learning from the corporate perspective, which is really important because it's different from the academic perspective, and it gives me a whole new way of looking at things. And xAPI, you want me to talk about xAPI?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, go for it.
I've been in love with xAPI for the longest time. I still hope to learn to understand how to use it, but conceptually I think is the best thing since sliced bread. Sliced whole grain, fresh baked bread, not white bread.
Awesome. Thank you. I am actually going to grab one of the first, one of the people from my very first ever xAPI cohort team. This is Meg Fairchild, everybody. She's at LlamaSoft. Here, let's kind of get.
What do you want me to do?
Okay. Say hi to cohort. Hi, cohort. What are you guys doing with xAPI? What are you seeing here happening with DevLearn?
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing so much more buzz about it this year. The last DevLearn I was at was like 6 years ago, so it was like non-existent then, practically. But so much more buzz about it. Lots of LMSs and LRSs supporting it that didn't used to support before. So good stuff all around. And as for what we're doing with it, we've got xAPI in our help documentation and looking to expand that beyond for courses and wherever we can put it, we want to put it so we can track. So, yeah.
Cool. Thanks. All right. I think we have gotten the assembled folks for cohort from DevLearn. This is pretty exciting, so I'm going to sign off here. Looks like we end cohort a little bit early this week, unless Jess has any more business to cover. So thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
Alrighty, thanks for that, Megan. As we're wrapping up, just want to remind folks that next week we have Andy Johnson and giving an update from ADL. It's never too late for folks to sign up for cohort. The party is coming up on December 13th, so make sure you sign up. And then if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can always reach out to me on email or Slack. And that's all we have for this week. Have an awesome week, everyone.